had to not be reactive. I had to let go of my impulsive and impetuous nature. I had to think before I talk. I had to think. I had to be conscientious. I didn't want to just live this life anymore where it just seemed like things were just always coming at me. And, let me tell you this from experience. When you are a mindless person, it feels as though life is just happening to you. You know what I mean? And you often talk about life from that perspective. Like, I can't believe life right now, baby. When it rains, it just seems like if it weren't for bad luck, I wouldn't have none. As though life were just happening. And listen, don't get me wrong. There are things that happen in life where oftentimes it seems like you're not in control of. You don't control being let go from your job. You don't control this relationship not working out. You don't control whether or not you're going to get hired, but you control your energy in those situations. And what is your energy saying about that? I couldn't control getting laid off from my job, but I knew I wanted to leave that job. I hated it every day. I hated it every fucking day. And God knew better. God knew I was never going to have the brevity within myself to leave it. God knew when I got into this most recent relationship that, yeah, there was a part of me, and there is still a part of me that wants the companionship and the love and to be in a relationship. But what do I actually think about myself? Am I ready for a relationship? And the reason why I ask that of myself is I think the past two relationship situations that I've been in have kind of been like these shooting stars where they shoot out and they're amazing and bright and full of hope only to fizzle out. And I had to think to myself, where is that coming from? You know what I mean? Because if you are on a mindfulness journey, you will never chalk that up to just being other people's problem. You'll always look at yourself and say, what was my contribution to this? Was my intention correct when I entered it? Needless to say, I started to think to myself, do you really feel like you deserve the best relationship? Take a moment. Breathe that in. You look a particular way from the outside and you're saying the right things, but what do you really believe? So a man thinketh, so he is. And I really had to check myself. And so, I found myself in a cycle in this relationship where I was constantly being dissatisfied. The communication wasn't there. There was inconsistencies in truth. He was being very economical with the truth, to quote Lisa Vanderpump. Very economical, very cheap with the truth, honey. Okay? And in a lot of ways, I think that I can't control what other people do. But I questioned myself for why I stayed. And if I had to be honest with myself, I had to admit to the fact that I stayed because that is the perspective I know love from. What do you know about love? Where did you learn love from? Most of us learned it through childhood. The way our parents reacted towards us when they were disappointed. The way our family talked to us and treated us and nurtured us, or maybe lack thereof. That is the functionality, or in a lot of cases, dysfunctionality that we learn love from. So it is not hard for me to stay in situations where one would look from the outside and say, but girl, does he really love you? Because the communication, sometimes he's not nice to you. And sometimes he's a little economical with empathy and with communication and with honesty. Is that love? But I know love from that perspective. I know love from that perspective. And I don't question whether or not in those situations, those people loved me. And I was too young to control the environment to say, hey, man, I know this isn't love. I'm going to leave. So in a lot of cases, I've stayed in bad amorous situations because I know love from that dysfunction. So I stayed longer than I should. That's on me, though. You know, what I find to be the most thought-provoking, or had found to be the most thought-provoking for me this week, was the idea that no one, what anyone has ever thought about me has never done me in. I've never been defeated by what other people thought about me. I never was defeated by the fact that this man treated me like that, or that other men have treated me like that, or that, you know, I was disappointed, or I disappointed in a friendship. Because let's be honest, I'm no angel, baby. Okay. But I say all that to say the thing that has always defeated me is what I thought about myself. That's the thing that has always defeated me. What I think about myself, truly. The hardest fights to fight is when you are holding on to dear life to keep something that God is saying, baby, this is over. This is dead, baby. You ever been in a relationship where you knew that shit was done? The fucking flat line had hit and you are holding on to it with a vice grip that can only be described as the jaws of life. And God is steady trying to take that job from you. And God is steady trying to take that man from you. And God is steady trying to take that friendship from you. And God is steady trying to take that relationship from you. And God is steady trying to take that ego from you. And you are holding on to it for dear life. Aren't those the hardest fights to fight? I was holding on for dear life to this relationship because I just didn't want to be able to have to come to some other person and say, well, another one bites the dust. I was more concerned about what I thought about myself. Not even so much what you were going to think about me, but what does that say about me that I'm in this situation again? And what I thought about myself because of it. So because I'm on a mindful journey, and because I want to be transparent, and because I know that the only way for me to get to the other side is for me to acknowledge exactly what it is. What you think about yourself will ultimately decide your perspective on the world. Same script, different cast, right? If you notice that every relationship of yours always turns out the same, or you've been noticing certain energies coming towards you, yo, people been trying me all my life, niggas been trying me. What do you think about yourself? Because the world is a reflection of your perspective. So truly, what do you think about yourself? Not how these people are trying you, because you can't control that. You can't control, what people think about you being a 38-year-old single woman with no kids. You can't control that. You can't control what people think about you because, they see you and they think shit is sweet. The only thing you can control is your perspective on how you see the world. Right? And that's only going to come on what you think about yourself. It was funny because, I thought about the many reasons why would you hold on to something that God is trying to take away? Right? And I think that a level of it is, especially when you see somebody that reminds you of yourself. You know what I mean? When you see yourself in something or someone, when you see that kid and you're like, yeah, I know that motherfucker's bad, but he reminds me so much of myself. And the truth is, you don't attract certain partners because of just all that you are. Sometimes you attract people because of all the things that you're not. So because you're not strong enough, You might attract a pariah. You know? Some motherfuckers are like sharks. They can fucking smell that shit a mile away. They can smell insecurity a mile away. And it doesn't matter how great you look from the outside. They could smell that shit. Yeah. I think that, even if you're thinking about from the perspective of, okay, so what do I do? How do I combat this? You know what I mean? And listen, if it was just up to thinking positively and being positive, and that means your world is going to be perfect, we'd all be doing it. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges that are gonna hit you just because you're a positive thinker. But what that does mean is that God may grant you the grace to deal with it a little bit better. Everybody thinks that it's always, and we've talked about this before, everyone thinks that it is when you get into the GPS, when you put an address into the GPS, everyone always thinks it is about the final destination. But the shit that takes you out is the journey. It's the fucking, oh, well now you're rerouting because there's a fucking accident. Or now it's going to take you an hour more because you didn't know that this fucking shit was going to happen. You didn't know the drawbridge was going to go up this morning. You had no clue. Doesn't matter about where you're going because you're going to get there. Right? So if I could leave you with anything, give yourself the grace to not make it about where you're going to go, but to really just live in the journey. It's difficult. Mindfulness is difficult. It takes more work to be mindful and not just react. It takes more work to be mindful and not just be impulsive and just say whatever the fuck you want to people and just do whatever you want to people. It takes work. And honestly, some days, if you're an empath or you're on a journey, a spiritual journey, or you're being mindful, some days you're like, fuck this shit. I want to be like everybody else. And I want to do what I want and eat what I want and say what I want. And I want to say a special fuck you to you too. Some days it is going to feel like that. But it'll be a wonder when your world looks a reflection of that. I know it's a lot of work, but you know what? I am glad that we are going on this journey together because you're not alone. So don't let guilt over your situation turn into shame and make you feel like, oh man, my life is so fucked up. Everybody's life is fucked up, my G. Everybody. But it is not about the destination. It is for sure how you get there. And at some point in time, you're going to have to choose yourself. That is mindfulness. Choosing yourself and honoring yourself, I realized, is a level of mindfulness. It's so easy for me to just stay in the same situations, the same redundancies, the same fucking dysfunctionalities that I've always known, because it's what I've always known. But to make an honest decision to say, you know what? I'm going to live without just so I can be more mindful and choose myself. Sometimes it is a very difficult choice. But I'm telling you, nothing, and you won't always get it right. We won't always get it right. But give yourself the grace and the permission to at least try. Thank you guys so much for listening this week. I appreciate you. Let's join hands and do a short person's prayer. Dear Lord, my steps may be shorter, but they are ordered. Amen. Hallelujah. Go out there this week and you have yourself a wedding doodle of a time. All right. Don't hurt nobody. Don't let nobody hurt you. And look out for one another. All right. I love you. Peace.
podcast you just heard was recorded